I am speaking to you this morning about a great concern. I've recently become aware of a strange, some might say, mysterious group in our nation today. I've even seen them in our small little town of Kalispell. They seem to be everywhere. It is my belief that, in fact, we may today have them in our midst at this very moment. They are commonly known as Gen Z. Generation Z. This refers to anyone born in the late 90s through to the 2000s. Brace yourselves, folks. What do they want from us? What language are they speaking? What is that thing always attached to their hand? I went online to find a Generation Z joke. Unfortunately, I didn't understand any of them. Gen Zs are a misunderstood bunch. So if you have happened to have been born within the last 20 years, put your hand in the air like you just don't care. Let me see. Everybody. Look around you. This isn't even all of them. So I've been part of this church coming up on 6 years, and I cannot, to the best of my recollection, remember ever a sermon especially for this group. And so today, Elise, Nathan, Tawny, Jackson, there's a bunch more out there. Today's sermon is for you. My sermon is also for all those that didn't raise their hands, but my purpose up here today is for you guys. Today is your graduation. We are all honored to be here today to share this momentous occasion with you. This is so exciting. I've never been asked to give a commencement speech. I've always wanted to. So thank you for inviting me. Wait, this feels a little weird. So, let's make this official. That's more like it. Now, my apologies. I looked everywhere for my original tassel and came up empty. Fortunately, we also have curtains in our home. But it's fine. I'm not embarrassed about it. Now, before I get too far down the road, let's come before the Lord. Well, I'm in it now. Lord, I pray that you'll be with me, and I pray that you can allow me to be your ambassador to these young people, that my words will ring true, and I pray that you'll allow me, even though I'm flawed, that they will receive the truth out of it. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. They were in love. Now, their road to love was an unconventional one. As with a lot of couples nowadays, they had met online. A solution far superior than a bar or a party, both of them had felt. They soon married. And as they enjoyed that blissful honeymoon stage, they could do anything. Travel to exotic locations, take in Broadway shows, sporting events, They could even stay up all night long if they wanted to. But then the serious question, they all started to come up. Should they buy a house? Where? How much should they spend? What car should they buy? All the while, the most serious question remained unanswered. Should they have children? And after much thoughtful discussion, they both finally agreed that it was the right time. Both felt that God was calling them to be parents. Through pregnancy, let me adjust my hat here, their life remained much the same. But as the days turned into months, the realization of how much their life was really going to be impacted suddenly became apparent. When the contractions started, the couple grabbed their go bag. They headed for the hospital. This was it. But as soon as they arrived, the contractions slowed down. How disappointing for them. The couple tried everything they could think of. They walked around the hospital. They went up and down the stairs. More than 12 hours later, they were finally admitted to the hospital and actively in labor. But something was wrong. Despite the efforts and experience of everyone in the room, that baby was not coming out. It was stuck. More people entered the room, with each new person bringing experience and new ideas or new approaches. A sigh of relief could audibly be heard when the baby was finally delivered. But all was not well. He was not crying. He was not breathing. A NICU team rushed in, making the already crowded room that much more suffocating. They laid the baby on a small table in the room and quickly began to work. His cry soon filled the room. All was well. A nurse put on the first diaper and wrapped him up in a little baby burrito. And as I held that little baby, just seconds old, intense emotion overtook me. Here he was, after all this time, a part of me. I was crying uncontrollably. He didn't cry at all. He just looked up at me with those inquisitive eyes. It was then that I closed my eyes. I snuggled him close, and I prayed silently. Lord, as you will, use me, use my family. This moment right here, this burned into my memory. And I wonder how many of your own parents have a story similar to that. How many stood there, tears streaming down their faces, awash in pure love that they had never experienced before? How many raised you up, asking for God's guidance and blessing in your life? I'd be willing to bet that most, if not all, did that. It is part of that dedication and that promise that led you to be sitting here today. So, in 1 Samuel 1, we read a somewhat similar story. It tells us of a man named Elkanah. Now, the Bible tells us that Elkanah was a very brave man, for, as we learn in verse 2, he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah. The name of the other was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children. but Hannah had no children. Now, this man would go up from his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Skip down to verse 4. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all of her sons and her daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah. But the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival, however, would provoke her bitterly to irritate her, because the Lord had closed her womb. Now, imagine for a moment that you lived in a culture where having a son was ultimately important. It meant the continuation of your line, a birthright. Even if you had a daughter, that still meant an opportunity to build an alliance with another family. Yet here was Hannah, taunted and derided for something she couldn't change, she had no power over. How long could a person endure a life like that without getting angry, getting even? Over to verse 7. It happened year after year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she would provoke her. So Hannah wept and would not eat. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Then Hannah rose after eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now, Eli, the priest, was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. Verse 9. She, greatly distressed, prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and a razor shall never come on his head. Skip down to verse 19. Then they arose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned again to their house in Ramah. And Elkanah had relations with Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. It came about in due time, after Hannah had conceived, that she gave birth to a son. And she named him Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. Now, when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with a 3-year-old bull and 1 ephah of flour and a jug of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, although the child was young. Then they slaughtered the bull and brought the boy to Eli. She said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. For this boy I prayed, and the Lord has given me my petition which I asked of him. So I have also dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. Let me stop there for a moment. Our church is unique. I mean, have you ever really thought about it? I think the fact that they allow people like me to come up here is proof of that. But not my point. Many of us have moved here from what I like to call Adventist ghettos, and it isn't as obvious to us. However, as I talk with other church members in other churches in other states, in Canada, there is something special about our church. Would you like to know what it is? It's you. I cannot tell you how many churches I've been to where there may be one person under the age of 40 in that church. It is sad to see classrooms that I'm sure at one time were filled with children, now used for storage. So, our global church has invested heavily in trying to understand how to help our young people stay in the church. There's summer camp, youth group, camp meeting, pathfinders. There are youth programs, youth leadership conferences. But what then? What comes next for you, our young people? In 2017, Lifeway research revealed that 66% of Americans between the age of 23 and 30 years said they had stopped attending church on a regular basis for at least 1 year after turning 18. Now, I should tell you, this represents Christians across the spectrum, not just Adventists. The Adventist Church has not done a specific study on youth. There are a lot of informal studies, but they do point to similar results. The Lifeway research revealed that the top 5 answers of why young people stop attending church were, I moved to college and stopped attending church. My work responsibilities prevented me from attending. Church members seemed judgmental or hypocritical. I just didn't feel connected to the people in my church. And finally, I disagreed with the church's stance on political or social issues. Now, what's interesting about that last one is in 2007, the results to that question were only 15%. In 2017, the results are 25%. According to their research, church attendance peaks at age 15 with 75%. But by the age of 18, that percentage drops significantly, down to just 4 in 10. Just 40% at the age of 18. 40%. Do you know what that says to me? It says now is the time. The majority of you are right at that peak age. You are here, you are willing to listen, and you want to stay. Like now is the time. So in 2011, Barna Group commissioned a larger study. In fact, it is the largest study to date with the intent of measuring what the reasons were that young people leave. This decade-long research project was titled 6 Reasons Young Christians Leave the Church. During this 10-year project, the firm conducted more than 27,000 interviews in more than 200 studies. Again, this is across the Christian spectrum, not simply Adventists. But their research showed that almost 60% of those that stayed in a church did so for one reason and one reason alone. We'll find out the answer to that over in 1 Samuel chapter 3. Now, the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord before Eli, and word from the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were infrequent. It happened at that time as Eli was lying down in his place. Now, his eyesight had begun to grow dim. He could not see well. And the lamp of God had not yet gone out. And Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. That the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here I am." Then he ran to Eli, and he said, "Here I am, for you called me." But Eli said, I did not call. Go lie down again." So Samuel went and lay down. The Lord called yet again, "Samuel." So Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you've called me." But Eli answered, "I did not call. Go lay down again." Now, Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor had the word of the Lord yet been revealed to him. So the Lord called Samuel again for the third time, and Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you have called me." Then Eli discerned that the Lord was calling the boy. And Eli said to Samuel, "Go lie down. And it shall be, if he calls you, that you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. "Speak, Lord. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." How did Samuel get to this place? What, was he called from nothing? Of course not. Samuel had the upbringing and the foundation provided by his parents. His mother's dedication and promise played a significant role in Samuel's life. But it was also Eli. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." It was in that moment that God was revealed to Samuel and was called to service. Now, Samuel's estimated to be about 11 years old at this point. Assuming that he had arrived at the temple when he was about 4, Samuel had been under the care and education of Eli for around 7 years. Samuel shows he has great respect for Eli. When he calls, Samuel comes quickly. Eli raised Samuel to love the Lord and heed the word of God. But as the chapter goes on, here's what we discover. Eli himself has not heeded the word of God. God reveals his plans to Samuel regarding Eli. It makes Samuel feel sad and afraid. This man was his teacher and in many ways his father. The next morning, Eli approaches Samuel and asks him what God had told him. Now imagine this. It had been years before anyone had received any message from God. Years before any vision had been received from God. And now Eli, a man of God, discovers that someone he knows, someone in his very home, last night received a vision from God. You can almost sense the excitement that he must have felt as he ran to discover what that message might have been. Why was it so important? Samuel, however, refused to tell him. Imagine what that felt like. Eli demanded to know. In verse 18, we read, "So Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. And Eli said," even though this is negative to Eli, Eli said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him." So let's go back to the results of that Barna Group research. The number one reason why young people stay connected to a church. Did you catch what that was? It was kind of hidden, but it's in there. See, here's what's interesting. based on the majority of credible research out there, young people do not want a hip pastor. Whether there is a band up here or not makes no difference. Whether I have a spiked mohawk, pierced ears, makes no difference. Which is good, because I called Casey, and neither one of us want to do that, so we're good. You know what did make a difference? One thing. Relationships. So let's clarify that. We aren't talking about dating. We aren't talking about love. We aren't even talking about friendships with their peers. Just as Eli trained and educated Samuel, this yearning for a mentor relationship came out loud and clear in the research. Life is difficult and complicated. The life of a Christian often is even more so. How can you possibly learn to navigate all the hazards of life without a coach going through it with you? The research shows that what truly makes a difference in the Christian life of a young person is developing a mentor relationship cross-generationally, meaning someone older than themselves. You will have to bear with us, though. In some cases, you might have to make the first move. Getting to know you can be intimidating for us older folks. But with the exception of probably Steve Kreitner, we're a pretty cool bunch. We're jiggy with it. We want to know you and help you and support you. But there's even more to it than that. You see, the mentoring part is great, but the Barna Group research also demonstrated another area of strength, where young people really showed a desire to stay active in a church was with reverse mentoring. That is, you mentoring us. You see, we often refer to you as the future of the church. I am sorry to inform you, that is not correct. You are this church's present. That is why today is your graduation day. It is the day that you fully realize how much you are appreciated. You are loved. You want to be taken seriously. You don't want to know how you can be involved in church 10 years from now. You want to know what you can do right now. It's not about earning experience to one day attain some leadership position. It's about using your God-given skills. This church needs your help. We need your help. This church has 50 Samuels in it. And looking out at this congregation, there are more than 50 Elis out there. You are valued more than you know. God is calling you by name. He does have plans for you. Graduates, my charge to you this morning, in the stillness and the quiet, when you hear his voice, your answer will always be, "Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth."